Alright, so we're live with Duke City Talk. I'm Arthur Bell, your host, and I have three special guests with me. They'll introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Miranda. I am a fitness coach and digital creator, women's rights activist as well.
Hi, I'm Felicia Silva, and I'm a pro-life activist and speaker, and I'm also a mother of four, and I also like to educate people about the situation.
And I'm Nicole Rogers, community activist, and work on issues like child well-being, and so this topic is really close to my heart.
So that topic you're talking about is Roe versus Wade, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, how do you all feel about the Supreme Court basically saying it's not up to us? We're just gonna step back and kind of let each state make their own decision when it comes to what people should be able to do.
I think it's a good thing because a lot of states are different. There's a lot of different cultures in each state. I don't believe Roe versus Wade should have been there in the first place, just because of like the history behind it. But I think it's good that the states make their own decisions because that's who you're voting for, and who you're voting for is what you're gonna get as far as like abortion laws.
I think it's important to look at the history of what Roe versus Wade was to begin with. So it was a woman who was already a mother who got raped. In Texas, anti-abortion laws said you have to have this child. And so she went to court to say, no, I don't want to have the child by the person who raped me. And they forced her to have the baby. So I think that's an important place to start, because this was all around the case of a woman who was raped, which is why we had Roe versus Wade to begin with.
I beg to differ on that though, because her name was Norma, and she actually wanted to keep her baby, and she actually gave her baby up for adoption.
But why did we go to court though? It was ruled that's
They used her case. Well, like she wasn't part of it. They used her rape case.
No, because she actually did the appeal and all of that. That went to Supreme Court in 1973.
Not from what I've read or known, that she actually kept her baby, and she wanted to keep her baby, not abort, and then she gave it up for adoption.
So she didn't want to keep her baby, but she just didn't want the baby to.
No, she wanted to keep her baby alive, like she didn't want to abort, but she wanted to do adoption. She didn't want
and not keep the baby.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Sorry, I probably said that wrong.
How do you feel about it?
I'm more about the fact that the government is turning these kind of clauses into a spectacle. You know, knocking down something like Roe versus Wade leaves the option open for more of these laws to fall. If they can put 3 Supreme Court justices in place and it can take apart and tear apart these monuments, that's not what the Supreme Court is about. That's not what they're supposed to do as a whole entity. Them taking this 3 extra people is running rogue against what the United States stands for, is running rogue against the civil rights and everything that we have given to. So this knocking down not only leads way into abortion, but it's also taking away our Miranda rights. It's looking into gay marriage. It's looking into privacy of the bedroom, privacy with data trackers with the period. So my entity of it is security. And when does one rogue entity override the House, Senate, and President? And how did we allow one rogue entity to have so much power that it would affect millions of people?
I mean, there's 13 states that basically have trigger laws stating that if you have an abortion there, you can have some type of consequence.
Right.
I mean, how do y'all feel about that?
It's wrong and unjust. The fact that our Miranda rights were taken away and anything you say or do can be used against you in the court of law. They have just recently instilled and allowed teachers to lead prayer in school now. So with that being said, we're teaching prayer versus how to protect ourselves against the U.S. government when we house 25% of the incarcerated in the entire world. So that's part of the problem right there, is that we're educating about this but not about what's important. And then that just leaves more room for what's the right religion for those teachers to teach. If a Muslim teacher gets up and leads in prayer for the children, who's going to be knocking at the door? How safe is that teacher? How is that? So that again leads into what's right, what's wrong.
So then, do you kind of believe like that each state should be different? Like
No,
when
I
you
think that them saying, yeah, we should do these, like letting the rogue states kind of do these things, it's rogue because it's clarifying and stating that my way is right and your way is wrong. Because take Texas, you know, the heavily Christian population, but there's Muslims, Jews believe in abortion. The satanic cult or the satanic church is actually getting more movement as this comes. So
Right.
when does the Christian church infringe on their rights? Why is the Christian church able to say they did X, Y, and Z, and that they are more important than their values?
It's like a crazy thing. It's like how do you solve that? You know what I mean?
Well, you solve it by, you know, if it was Christian women, hypothetically,
Yeah.
let's say some rogue entity came in and took over the United States government, and they were like, every woman is on contraceptive, and if they're pregnant, they're getting an abortion. If that was the rule, I would be out in the streets fighting for Christian women to not have the abortion and not have the contraceptives because that is their right, that is their religion, that is what they want to do. And I don't believe in Christianity, but I do believe you have the right to do what's best for you. And so to me, it's interference. We founded America on religious freedom, you know, being able to escape those kind of things. I mean, Christianity is, you know, a newer religion, so you have those discussions and you kind of go from there. But to say that one is supreme is the issue.
Yeah, I think when we were preparing for this, we were looking at statistics of women, like when you break down who's actually having abortions. And this is a Christian organization that used CDC to kind of look at the data, and it was like 1 in 3 women surveyed that had abortions identified as Christian. So that to me was shocking, like to read that from, because you think I think society has an idea of who it is that's having abortions, right? And it's uneducated, low-income women of color, right? But when we look at the statistics, I mean, it's not necessarily always the truth.
And
Yeah.
the highest rate of women that were having abortions already had multiple kids. So
Mhm.
you would think it would be those first time mothers, but that's typically not the case.
From what I've read in the statistics, it was actually higher for women who never had abortions before they got abortions, and then the ones that did multiple, it actually went down to I think 8%. Like I try to help women who've had abortions who do suffer afterwards, because you know you can't erase the memory of your baby, and you know you may be like 14, 15, 16, whatever, early 20s, and you're just worried about having fun and trying to find out who you are. But then when you get, you know, in your 30s, you have time to reflect about that and you're more mature, and it does haunt women, and they, you know, a lot of women do commit suicide. So it's like I said, there's just so many aspects of this that you got to look into that people don't hear about, you know. So you may hear Roe versus Wade, and then it's pro-choice, pro-life, but it's like when you get and dig deep, like, you know, you're doing the statistics, it's like, why is that you know, you're saying Christians are the majority, and a lot of them, it's because just to get it because it's inconvenient, the majority of them.
Yeah, it was staggering to me to see, like, and to your point, it said that majority of abortions are women in their 20s, so younger, yeah, but the statistics were lower for people of 15 and younger, which was good. It was like 3% or something like that. So that's another misconception, that it's a bunch of teens out there like getting abortions, but I don't think Teen Mom would be as famous as it is if the teens are out there getting a bunch of abortions.
Now you can do it without parents' consent, and
Certain states, yeah, New Mexico's age 12.
yeah, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's disgusting to me. And then there's also risks too. Your breast cancer risk goes up ×3 for each abortion you have, and it's even higher if you're a smoker. So we have a lot of women, like, you know, late teens, early 20s, who are getting breast cancer, 30, you know, late 20s, early 30s, and a lot of them are dying. You know, we have this epidemic with that. No one talks about that because it's not out there, because then it's going to bring up abortion. You know what I mean? It's this big, like, can of worms. You know what I'm saying? So that too, it's like, if you don't know about your risks later on, that should be something, a factor when you're being educated about and informed about something that you're going to do, because it does have consequences later on, not just that moment, you know.
Yeah, I just worry about the number of women that will die from having illegal abortions in a back room somewhere because they can't make it to a state that they can come to like how many women are how we're gonna go back to that? And to me, the risks of possibly getting breast cancer, or versus that, there's no clear. I mean, they're both.
It's a lot.
But to speak to that, I do use, I have healthcare and I have insurance, all of the things, but I choose to go to Planned Parenthood and have all of my contraceptive conversations there. And let me tell you, I have had more knowledge and more support from the men and women at Planned Parenthood than I have at my regular OBGYN. My OBGYN delivered my son. We have a really good relationship. Everything is good. I absolutely love seeing this woman. She is a treasure. However, when I go to Planned Parenthood and I talk about my contraceptives, they break everything down systematically. They tell you, hey, you're going to try this. If you don't like it, make an appointment. We'll get it out in a week. These are your risk factors. There are pamphlets. Their walls are lined with pamphlets, and they do a whole interview with you. They sit you down and ask you, are you safe at home? How's your mental health? What are you thinking about this? Do you have any blood diseases that run in your family? Anything with your father? Their list is extensive, and I can't express how much they offer and how much knowledge they give. So as far as them being like, these women just going in and making these uninformed decisions, again, the care that I've received from Planned Parenthood is beyond the scope of any doctor I've ever experienced in my life.
Is it like, I don't mean to infringe on your privacy, but if you do want to talk about it, you can. But like, I don't know if you got an abortion before at Planned Parenthood or not, but like, I know you're saying about birth control, but is it the same for abortion? Like, you were educated about it?
Yeah.
And it's on.
Yeah, they have it on the walls. Like, there's one on Carlisle, you can go there, they'll sit down, they'll talk to you. I go for contraceptives, and I took my 17-year-old niece with me. We sat down. I wanted her to know where the office was. I wanted her to know it was a safe place, because it's underfunded, right? You go in there, it's a little sketchy, right? You're like, where am I, right? But I took her there because I wanted her to know this is what it's like. This is the experience I had. And she left and she was like, that is not as scary as I thought it was going to be. The appointment was for me. And it was me getting my contraceptives. And they took the time out. They sat with her. She had some questions, and I told them, I was like, if you're comfortable with me being here, I'll sit here with you.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable, I will step out. Girl, you got your floor. She sat there with me, and they go over everything. It's not just like it's intercourse, what STDs are in the area, what to look out for. They told me statistically that genital warts is on the rise in New Mexico, and I was like, what?
1 in 4 people out there now.
Yeah, and so I was like, what? And this is what Planned Parenthood told me. This is what they did, and my niece was just, she's sexually active. She's doing what she wants to do, but we have those discussions. I can't sit there and tell her, you got to stay in the house, you can't do these things, right? But I can teach her how to respect herself. I can tell her that when she says no, it means no. And if that boy crosses that line, then she needs to come tell me, and we're going to fix that aspect of it, right? But it's important to educate. And like I said, Planned Parenthood and these abortion clinics aren't just knocking them out because it's a spicy Tuesday, right? There's a lot of education and care and compassion that comes from them. I'd only gone there a couple of times, and listen, I will go back all the time just from the care that I've received.
And not to mention, they just take the pressure off of our healthcare systems that bottom line, it's hard to get a primary care doctor right now to get that contraception. So you kind of have to go to places like Planned Parenthood, to see a specialist. The wait is a long time, 6 months or so to get a primary care doc here. So I think places like Planned Parenthood fill the gaps that the healthcare system doesn't have the capacity to make sure that we should be able to go to our primary care doc and get the same education and them spend the time to do that. But no, we have 15-minute appointments, all these things that I think, I think the misconception is you go to Planned Parenthood. I've had pregnancy tests done at Planned Parenthood. And, I think the misconception is as soon as they give you that positive pregnancy test, like, would you like an abortion?
Yeah.
Like, that's not what happens. I think that they educate you on all of your options, and they don't just force it on you. They say, would you like to learn about your options or talk about your options so that you have a safe place to work through those things. And I think for me that was a good thing, because the first time I got pregnant, I was in my 20s, same thing, like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?
Almost said the same thing.
Yeah.
I meant my wife was pregnant.
Yeah. And it's like, well, you know, all of those things go around. I mean, for me, abortion wasn't an option for me, but I also don't believe in taking someone else's choice away from them. You know, I believe everybody should have that right. And I think I am of the opinion, I know Arthur talked a little bit about making sure women have the options, but I always think about, what about the dads?
Yeah, they have no rights, and I don't think it's fair because, like, one thing that I haven't really understood yet is, you know, it's my body, my choice, but like the baby's body isn't their body. But then some have said it is their body because it's
They're in your body. Yeah.
But it's like, if that's the case, half of their DNA is in your body too. So like, where are the men's rights to say yes? Because there's also another aspect that people talk about is men suffer too in silence because
Women.
yeah, I'll take the baby. You don't have to take care of it. I'll take all rights. I just want my baby. And, you know, I've seen videos where men are bawling outside abortion clinics, begging them, just crying their eyes out.
To not do it.
And they don't have a right to say no.
Yeah, the good thing is now there are legal avenues for a man to say. I mean, I read about a case where a man sued a woman who wanted to have an abortion, and again the court said no, he wants the baby, so you have to have this baby.
And she's honest about it. If she hides it, then he can't.
Yeah. So that's the other part, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the other part of it that you're right. Well, we don't have conversations about the other side for the dads who maybe do want that child.
Right, and then back to what you guys were talking about too with history. That's where I have a problem with Planned Parenthood too. Because I went there when I was like, what, 16, 17? Because that's when I was raped and I had my baby, and I didn't know where to go. So they took me to Planned Parenthood for a pregnancy test. And then I went and got an OBGYN or whatever. But like the history of Planned Parenthood is something that I have an issue with too, because Margaret Sanger, who created Planned Parenthood, and her reasoning, in her own words, was to exterminate the black race. And that's why she created it. She was also part of the KKK. And it's like, that's the history beside. And then they would plant them in neighborhoods that were poor to target Black Americans. And that right there is just like, you know how you shop at certain places and you find something that about them that you don't like you're not going to shop there anymore, you know? And then it's not even safe for women either. Abortion has never been safe because it actually kills women. Keisha Atkins died in 2017 from a botched abortion, and they treated her worse than a dog. When the ambulance went to, and it's not Planned Parenthood, it's the Late Abortion Clinic, because she was 6 months pregnant. The ambulance got called for a homeless man who was on the floor, not responsive in their parking lot. They did not call her an ambulance, and she was already in sepsis, 14 hours. When she got to UNM, she died, like during surgery. And that's
You said when she got to UNM?
Yeah, because the ambulance, I don't know exactly how they dealt with it, but I know an attorney who represents her family. And I have facts for days, botched abortions, women dying, and that's here in New Mexico. You know, that's the Late-Term Abortion Clinic, which I did go undercover when I was 37 weeks pregnant in 2017 to find out more information. And I found out a lot. And the thing about that is they told me, I said, you guys like Planned Parenthood? Like we have contraception and like mammograms and all the other stuff that they help with. They said, no, we're strictly termination. So it's the one on High Street.
No, exactly.
And yeah, Lomas, they're strictly termination.
Right.
And it's like, it's not like Planned Parenthood, like if they do help, there's no other option but termination. And they're gonna charge me $17,000 to abort my baby, and Medicaid pays for it. So in that year alone, it was like, I think it was 290 something. I don't know the exact number, I don't remember. But can you imagine $17,000? So let's say, estimate, I think a 35 week was like 15,000. So let's say 15,000 times 290 some. How much of that tax dollars are we paying towards killing innocent babies? And you gotta think about that too, because then it brings a culture of death. And, you know, I see a lot of people rising up for children, but it's like, what about the children in the womb who have no say-so, who, you know, mothers' maternal instincts and unconditional love should come through, but you have to deny that to get an abortion.
Well, you know, Medicaid pays for you to birth if you choose to go that route as well. They'll pay for your $30,000 medical bill to have a vaginal or cesarean birth. I mean, you can talk, the government's doing both of them. They're giving them both the right to do that. They're gonna pay $30,000 for a live birth, or they're gonna pay that amount for an abortion.
It's even more though, because we started in 1973, right?
Mhm.
Over here in New Mexico. Since the late 70s, we've been doing late term abortions all the way up to the day of birth because we're unrestricted. And Roe versus Wade doesn't affect us at all.
No.
We're completely, like I'm due right now, I'm 37 weeks, right? Let's say I'm 42 weeks, I'm 2 weeks over. If I decided, you know what, I just want to go get an abortion, they'll do it. And I don't need an excuse. I could just, because I want to. And it's by lethal injection, and the baby suffers for 4 to 6 hours with the lethal injection. And then you have to give birth to your dead baby. Can't hold it, but Riverside will have like a service for you or whatever. But there are actually, Embassy Suites is one of them, I'm not sure the other hotels. That's where they send the women to go. And the women who have cleaned up the messes, like the blood and all that stuff, they go there to get, to like labor, the babies and all that stuff. And it's just disgusting because like people don't see that side, and it's always hidden. And women are not safe, obviously children aren't either.
That's still their choice, right? Like, I mean, who are we to tell them what they should be doing or not doing?
Over another person's body though, like that like you were saying earlier, right? They put themselves in that position, like the man and the woman, because it's not just the woman, it's a man and a woman. Like if we put ourselves in that position where we know we can have a baby, why put the baby in that position, have it alive, and then 2 years ago they found out that babies feel excruciating pain through all 3 trimesters during abortion because they have more pain receptors than an adult or a newborn. Excruciating pain, so it's like, I think about that because they have no say-so. If you ever go on YouTube, there's something called the silent scream. There's a minute one because it's like 40 minutes long. There's one that's a minute, and it talks about the first trimester abortion where they have cannula. It's like the straw suction. You put it next to a can, it's gonna crush the can. That's how much suction it has. So if and you could see in the ultrasound they're doing it. You could see the baby's, like this baby's like 6 weeks, opening its mouth. Yeah, and it's trying to get away. It senses danger. So it's like that kind of like, I believe if someone's gonna be pro-choice, they need to watch those videos. They need to see those pictures because you need to know what you're doing.
But that infringes on their rights. I mean,
What about the baby's rights though?
well, let's digress and put it into something not in the same context. Let's talk about guns, right? Let's make every man that wants to go buy a gun have to get psychologically cleared, right? They have to do all of these things. We limit the sales of said guns to 1 unit. And as he goes to buy that gun, there are tons of women with signs saying, don't kill our babies because guns, you're killing babies in our schools.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go through here. They have to pass psychological tests. They have to watch videos of them killing babies, of them doing all of these things. Do you think that man or woman is going to stop buying their gun because they watched a video? Because those moms lined the street?
But it's not the gun that kills, it's the person. Whether it's a gun or whatever, they're gonna find a way.
Exactly, and that's
Same
the
with
same
abortion.
concept here.
But it's a human life.
It's
You're
a
taking
human life with the schools. If you look at it, I mean, 19 children were just killed the other day. And that's what the problem is. Those men, that man,
Mhm.
he didn't go through all of that. He didn't have to go get psychologically cleared. He didn't have to face those moms who got, they had to carry their 4th grade dead bodies. He didn't have to go deal with none of that. He just went and got the gun.
The
That was
same
it.
way those mothers,
Yeah,
their babies.
he made that choice. He did that, right? But we're
And that's
not
not right.
regulating that. We're not out here talking about that aspect.
No one's regulating abortion for the baby's rights. You infringe on the rights of another. It's not a personal choice when you have a victim.
So speaking of the babies, what about the babies who are here right now who are in foster care? Because right now it's about 400,000 in the country.
Yeah.
And we only have maybe 36,000 people that are even applying for foster care to be foster parents. So I guess my question would be, if we are to say have the baby regardless, who fits not only the bill, but who fits the responsibility to make sure these kids don't fall into a system that's already so overstressed and underfunded and under-resourced? And I mean, I know people who've been through the system and they've came out strong. So that's not to say that people can't make whatever they want to be out of that situation, but
Right.
to put basically double at a minimum, so that's 400,000. Who fits that bill? And I don't even mean money wise, like the responsibility to make sure that they're not stressed as children. Like, we want to bring these children here, we should have some type of something set in place to make sure that they can be
I agree.
whatever they want to be.
I agree.
So, but how do we do that? And I'll start with you at the end. And then
Well, I think everybody who's happy about Roe versus Wade better be a foster parent. Like, better go do some adopting. Same with pro-life people. Like, pro-choice, like, my thing is everybody needs to go out and care about what's happening with our youth. Because, Roe versus Wade or not, how many people have how many abortions happen every year? Something like 800,000. So now if some of those babies, even half, like you said, even half are born, and the mom chooses to do adoption instead. Well, there's not enough people out there who want to take care of those kids, and it seems like it always ends after you're out of the womb. Yep, you're on your own, kid. So I hope that people out there that are watching, if you really are happy about this, like, go and adopt, go and foster some kids, and actually, help that part of the situation.
I'll jump to you, and then I'll save you for
Okay.
Can you repeat it one more time just so I can summarize?
basically, at the end of the day, how do you feel about the whole thing?
Okay. I feel like there are a lot of opportunities that are missed, 100%. I think that sex education is something that is not talked about enough in schools. I think that knocking down Roe versus Wade leads, again, to other problems if they can take this one out. Who's not to say that other rights won't be infringed? So as, Americans, we need to kind of look at that and say, if one can go, a lot more can go, which talks more about the popularity vote. We need to end gerrymandering. We need to start being more involved in the vote, and then also depicting and allowing the government to decide what is a human being. And if they are going to force birth at this point, if I have a miscarriage, 3 days of bereavement for that time frame. If they are doing that, then I would like to take life insurance out on my child. If they are doing that, I would expect to be able to claim them on my tax returns, and then also have them as a U.S. citizen, because they are born on this land with me, and they are here. So I do expect full rights, and I do expect, the men who do produce these children to step up and really kind of rear it. I want harsher punishment for men that actually do this and abandon children and do these aspects, because if we're going to start going a legal aspect, then we need to fight back with legalities.
I do too. The last part, when it comes to the men, I believe that every man that takes place and has sex, creates a child, you should accept full responsibility for that child. Not until he's 18, for the rest of your life. Because I've never called my mom and asked her for something, and she's not been there for me. It's not about money, it's about just being there for your child. Like, a father should always be there for their child. And it shouldn't be the government's responsibility to tell you have to take care of it. It shouldn't be a child support thing to where, why pay child support? What about the time that it takes? Like you said earlier, just waking up and taking your child to daycare before you go to work. Like, you have to wake up earlier. It's just so much that goes into it. As a man, we're privileged to not do or be put in a position to have to do the majority of the stuff that women have to do when it comes to bringing life into this world. So as a man, I just want to say thank you to you all for taking on that responsibility, because it's not easy. So, and to you, thank you.
I agree too. Like, we have a culture, like, we need men to rise up. We need men to take responsibility, because, like, when it comes to, like, abortion or pro-life, all this stuff, it's all about women, but, like, men aren't rising up to take their responsibility. If we had the men rise up, like you said, we wouldn't need the government to help or people to get involved in that. They should do their job as a father, and that comes with taking accountability and responsibility, creating a culture of life, like the family, you know what I mean? I have a friend who works for, or used to work for CYFD. She actually quit recently, but she even said, I said, what are your thoughts about all this in the foster care? And she said, the ones that aren't being adopted are the teens. Had their dad been there, they wouldn't be in foster care. They probably wouldn't have all these issues, right? Because it starts in the home. It starts with what you're seeing. The dad shows the kids how do you treat a woman. The woman shows the kids how do you treat a man, and how they treat each other is exactly how they're gonna treat others. So yeah, I think definitely men need to rise up in that perspective. And when it comes to like children, like I believe, you know, like you said, that people should have rights. I believe that babies should have full rights too, though, and I believe men should have full rights too, because it's half their DNA, it's half their body. You know what I mean? And I believe, you know, with the whole foster care thing, I think it's like 2 million foster parents, not foster parents, people waiting to adopt foster kids. So it's 36 parents per foster child waiting to adopt, but they can't because they make it difficult and then they make it expensive. So it's like, I get what you're saying, you know, but it's like, does that mean we don't care because we can't adopt? Because it's hard, it's a hard system to get into, and it's expensive. You know what I mean?
And New Mexico's, we're lucky that, you know, CYFD has class, like there's a lot of advocacy groups that are already doing trainings to help you figure out how to get in the system, to help to be a foster parent. So it's not as hard here, and that leads to adoptions, making that easier. So starting off is that if you do want to adopt it or having a hard time, I would advise starting as a foster parent, because they're even letting single moms now be foster parents, and they're easing up on those things because the need is so great.
Exactly.
And here in New Mexico, there's definitely not 36 parents lining up.
Well, it's in the U.S. altogether.
Yeah, but just looking at New Mexico, that is not the case. So we are 50th for child well-being here because I believe nobody cares enough about the kids that are already here.
We prove it all the time. When it comes to our children, we've taken away everything that I enjoyed as a child, like the beach water park.
Yeah.
Cliffs, they may added 2 rides and a little water park. Like, come on, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, our children see that. Like, these same kids who were 5 years old, now they're 13, they're looking around like, I can't wait to move. And me as a parent, I feel somewhat responsible because what have I done to make sure they had something and a reason to stay?
Well, inflation is a very real thing.
Yeah, but
if we want to talk economics about it,
we have. It's not a budget thing. We just don't have the political will, right? It's something I'm learning about now, to care and do the things that we need to do for these kids.
Most people can't afford. I mean, if I have an 11-year-old, but if I wanted to go adopt a child, there'd be restrictions. I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
They'd tell me no, and I would love to have a foster child. I would love to have those things, but I'm restricted. I don't have the same opportunity. Okay.
As a foster, here in New Mexico, there's definitely single parents that can be foster parents because the need is so great. And so, you know, if you're a single mom and you have it, you know, not that single moms don't have it together and couldn't do it. Like, I'm a single mom. We could totally.
My son is just wild. He has a great time out here.
But I also don't want to be so like tough on the men. Like, we need moms to also step up and mend the relationships that they've had, broken relationships with their child's fathers. That makes it so that they aren't around. Like, if there are moms who use kids as pawns, right, or, you know, and so that has a lot to do with it. And sometimes the men get sick of dealing with it and just do this. And I think there's a responsibility on both ends to heal their families. No, you don't have to be together. No, you don't have to be best friends, but you need to show up as a unit for your kid.
Period.
And that is something that, you know, as a single mom, I've had people in my own family like, you shouldn't let him see him. You shouldn't, and it's like, that is my choice, right? And like, you have to trust that you've raised me to be able to make decisions for my children, so that they can never come back to me and be like, why didn't you let my dad be around? Like, so I think it's 2 ways. Women, y'all gotta let go of some of that stuff and get some counseling, do your work, and do some reunification counseling.
To men and women knowing who you're dealing with too. When it comes to abortion, if you're sleeping with a person who you actually know and you know the character of that person, then you know what the outcome is if you all become pregnant. But sometimes you're dealing with someone who you just want to get a quick one in, and it's like, men have a responsibility as well to not just be out here sleeping with everybody, especially unprotected. So
women too, they just men.
I'm a man, so I can only speak for us, you know. There's some
but if you ever do have a podcast about, you know, how men, you know, prey on women and how they do this kind of tactic against them, I would love to come back and have that conversation. Yeah, because that's a whole other one. Like, let's go, right? I would love to have a conversation about New Mexico men and dating out here.
I don't even. I can't even. I'm in my 40s. I'm over it. It's not happening.
The ocean ain't as big as they say. When they say it's other fish in the sea,
No, we're not in a sea though here.
We're in a
lake.
pool. We're in a pool
In a
with
pool,
pee.
yeah. I like that. We're in an above ground pool.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
In a real
yeah,
pool.
yeah.
That's why I married someone from the East Coast, not here.
No, I
Maybe I need to follow your lead.
see that. My husband is the Caribbean or Africa. I already know.
Tingley Beach is all I'm gonna say.
No.
Tingley Beach is the ocean that we're looking for our soulmates at, and that's why
There's like
it's so
carp in there.
saturated.
Seriously, I feel like it's the same for men though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just rough
Yeah.
out there. And I think that's the, like, we're talking about all these issues, like, we're not getting to the root cause of a lot of this stuff, right? Like, you know, I think, and that's what, for me, is sad about the Roe versus Wade stuff, because, you know, for, and like you said, for the victims of sexual assault, like, that is, for me, that my heart hurts for people like that, who just can't fathom bringing that life into existence because of how it started. So I'm glad you were shared your story, because it's very courageous to share your story.
And it wasn't easy. Like, you're like, well, you're strong, so maybe someone else isn't that strong. And I'm like, I was 16 years old. I was a junior in high school. I only kissed a boy before I was raped. And I had my whole life ahead of me, and I was looking into colleges. And then I get raped, and I'm like, what do I do? I didn't think I didn't have that support in the family where I felt like I can go to my mom or my dad, like, someone raped me, like, that I'd get in trouble, or like no one would believe me. And it's like, what do you do? And then even then, like, to go to court for that kind of stuff, they pick you apart.
Your character.
And being a 16-year-old, like,
You're not treated like the victim.
using words, and you're uncomfortable, like, you know, hearing the word penis or something. I mean, you're like 16, 15, you're like, it's uncomfortable, and it's in front of a judge. Like, I didn't feel like I wanted to go through all that anyway, so I just kept it a secret till probably about a few years ago. I actually had to tell my son when he was 15, he's 19 now. When he was 15, I had to tell him, like, why his dad's not in his life. I had to have that conversation. I wanted to wait, but he's like, what's wrong with me that my dad's not in my life? And I was like, this is why. I was like, put in your perspective, if you raped a woman, would you really want to be part of that child's life? He's like, I probably wouldn't. I was like, so it's not you. Because he was getting self-destructive and suicidal because his dad wasn't in his life. And he's like, why? Because, you know, he had my other son's dad in his life, and he's his dad. But he wanted his real dad. Every child wants their own dad and mom. So, like, yeah, it was really difficult. And I wasn't strong. It's because I had unconditional love for my child and that maternal instinct to keep my baby. Although my mom did try adoption, she did something called a cuddle care through the adoption agency. And so they had me stay at In Town Suites. This was 2001. I stayed, so I just had my baby. As soon as I left the hospital, they took me there. They paid for all this, by the way. I spent a whole week with just me and the baby. They wanted to make it a real situation because you're not guaranteed you're always going to have people to help you, you know, especially at 16. So I took care of it by myself, and then I had to do another week without my baby to see what it's like without the baby. You know, they wanted you to have both sides so you can make an informed decision, I guess, and your feelings too. But it only lasted 3 days, and I was like, I want my baby back. So I couldn't do the adoption. Like, I already picked parents and everything. They're in Ruidoso, and I was like, I just can't do it. You know, and it was hard. I did have to get counseling, and I had to get, you know, because the trauma, there's the trauma.
Yeah.
And it was hard, and like now I could talk about it and I'm fine. Like when I was younger, it was hard to deal with, and you know, there was part of me that was like, I seen my rapist in him, but I didn't let my child know. I just kept it inside. That's the stuff you need help with, like to deal with all that. I mean, now there's lots of resources for all of that stuff with the Me Too movement, but like back then with me, like I didn't, the schools never talked to me about rape. I thought rape was violent. I didn't know rape was when someone took advantage of you, got you drunk, or put stuff in your drink. So,
and I think that's the education piece, like, right, that's important for youth, like, and to see the statistics, that's not a lot of teenagers, but it still means, I think, like you said, we're not doing the education piece, sex education. I mean, my daughter's 14, and I don't know that she's, like, other than stuff we talk about, of course, because I want her to be informed, but a lot of that's not taught in schools.
it's not.
I mean,
I remember seeing that video in 7th grade, and that's really what deterred me from doing anything that was gonna get
The
that
birthing
result.
video?
Yes, I'm serious.
I don't think I saw that one.
yeah. And it depends on what school you're at, what district.
Washington?
Washington
I went to Valley and Cebu. I didn't see
Yeah, I
I
went to
Cibola,
Cibola.
they
We
didn't
didn't.
do that
Yeah, I
either,
went to
yeah.
Cibola. I went to
Cibola?
Cibola.
They
What?
said middle school.
2003.
But
Middle school.
99.
Yeah.
I'm old.
Yeah.
my son is in 5th grade and he just went through sex education.
5th grade.
What
Fifth
school
grade.
does he go to? Or what type of school does he go to?
A public APS,
Okay.
yeah, on the west side. And so they went over it. Yeah, they talked to him
How old
about
are you
it.
in 5th grade?
11, 10, 11.
It's like-
So he
That's
has
what my
that,
son
but again,
is.
it's
That
it's
feels
those.
early. That I don't know why as a mom I'm like, ooh.
Is
that
it
feels
is
early.
it sex education or is
Yeah,
it like
so it's
the
not
puberty?
like it's the puberty
Oh,
talk,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
but they kind
like,
of
whoa.
go over, they
Like
go
what your
over,
bodies are
they go over
changing.
the
Yeah.
sex and all of that kind of stuff. So he came home and he had some questions and all of that stuff. But
Did they tell you before?
yeah, I had to sign a permission slip. It was great.
Okay.
They didn't do it without my permission or anything. But like I said, it's about who you're like raising. Like my son, we go on weekly dates. I give that man $40. He opens the door for me.
Aw.
Listen, he walks on the side of the road by the traffic. He knows to when I'm going up the stairs, he's behind me. When I'm going down
That's
the
cute.
stairs, he's in front of me. And so he pays for all of our dates with cash. He does it and learns how to tip and everything.
That's
so
good.
but yeah, like I'm always like, no, and if a girl tells you no, you tell her thank you and move on, sir. Like we're not here.
They say we can't raise men, but we can raise gentlemen.
Yes.
I'd rather have that, let me tell you.
So as far as New Mexico being one of the only states that's actually going to be participating in the abortion, do you feel like that's going to overrun the resources that we do have right now?
I heard one of our, I think it was I won't say the name, but one of our politicians talk about that and how it's going to tax our healthcare system. But the fact is, Texas's law went into effect in September. So we've already been receiving patients in droves by plane, chartered plane, and bus to come here to get their abortion. So it's already been happening. I think healthcare will be more bankrupt by stuff from COVID than abortions. But I know that there's going to be more clinics probably sprouting up in New Mexico to handle the capacity. There's a new one in Las Cruces that just opened. So I think it's already happening, and so I think it will put a strain on things. But as we can see, we talked about earlier, all the corporations and things that are coming out of the woodwork saying we'll pay for you to go somewhere else,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But your point was great about that.
Oh, well, yeah, that these corporations will give $4,000 to travel, but there's not 12 weeks paid
Mhm.
paternity leave.
Right.
There's like 1% matching on 401ks. They don't offer any pension plans. So, read into that stuff. Like, it's great that the corporations are giving this to them. But again, they're cutting costs in other areas. And this is an opportunity for us to kind of say, I want my company to relook at these things. I'm worth 12 weeks of paid maternity leave. I'm worth it. That might give me a little bit more drive to spend with my child. And then,
Right.
And paternity leave.
and
so the
paternity
pops
for the
can go
fathers,
too.
you know what I mean? And then that security for breastfeeding. I breastfed my
Mhm.
son for 1.5 years, and it was a time of bullying. They would be like, you have to go to the bathroom to breastfeed. You have
That's
to.
horrible.
Oh yeah, I
Oh,
fought
you
them
go
tooth
eat
and
your
nail.
lunch in the bathroom.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going in there. You guys can wait.
Yeah.
It's 15 minutes. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a rough time, but I like having these conversations because it opens up the topics as to
Right.
these things, right?
Mhm.
Because maybe if we had more resources, we would be able to afford births. We would be able to actually do it, But again, ask your employer, why am I not getting 5%? Why don't I have a pension? Why are we able to send $4,000 for all of this, but we don't have pension plans? Why don't we have security? Why don't I get 12 weeks? Some people are using their 2 weeks of PTO to
Right.
give birth.
My
Come
husband
back
has
to
to
work.
do that because there's
See, and it's a prime example. Like, can you imagine what 12 weeks of paternity leave would look like with your husband?
that would be awesome.
The
Right, and
bonding,
it's
the
a-
family. We're talking about
Yeah.
family, nuclear families.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have. And like I said, we can focus on abortion as much as we want, but fundamentally, there's rights that are being infringed, and we are being overworked and underpaid. And I think that's where the fight's at, is figuring out how to get these resources for women and have them be secure in their decisions.
I think it's gonna drain our resources even more. And there's inflation. Like it's already bad as it is. It's like milk and eggs and all that. It's going up. I mean, I don't even know. Like, there's women get WIC. I don't know what that's gonna look like. And then the formula crisis and all these buildings getting burned down, like meat factories.
And free childcare. It's really hard to get here right now. Just have to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not free.
But not only that, and the reason why I say that is not only just because inflation and gas prices, but since the late 70s, people have been coming from all over the world to New Mexico to get their late term abortions, right? And immigrants and people from other states, literally people, someone can come from Russia, and this is not just this year, this has been since the 1970s, can come here, get on Medicaid, and we pay for their late term abortion, which is in the 15,000 to 17,000s. So it's not just New Mexicans that are getting their abortions paid, their late term abortions paid. It's people from all over the world. Like, you know, if you're in India and you had sex and you got pregnant, that looks bad. You know, you can't, like before marriage, you know what I mean? Then they have to get an abortion to hide it, or their family's dishonored. Like, that's what we get, those type of people. So yeah, so if we're paying for like the whole world's abortions, late term abortions, it's gonna drain our resources. That's with their tax dollars. And they can get, we're one of those states that where they can get Medicaid for 3 days, because it takes 3 days to do the abortion. So like that right there, I'm just like, why do I have to pay for that? Because, you know, you, like you said, people have their own views and stuff. Why do I have to pay for full-term babies all the way up to the day of birth getting killed? Like, I don't believe in that. And to me, their blood's on my hands because I'm paying for it, you know? So that's my stance on that.
You want to chime in?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it definitely, I don't know. For me, it just goes down to your personal choice and like not taking off. You know, we talked a lot about religion, and I think I said this before when we were just talking, but you know, I believe God's even pro-choice. He gave us free will. That's free will. Do I think he wants my career? Do I think he wants us to kill babies? No. But he still gives me the choice to make that decision for myself, and then deal with him when me and him. So for me, you know, it has to be between you, whoever you believe is your God or creator. That's between you and them, not me and you, or me and the congressman, who is an old white man, like, you know, making
I'm
these
like,
decisions.
that topic alone right there is it.
Yeah,
It's
that's a whole other
60,
show.
yeah, it's 65 years
I
old.
don't
They
think I'm gonna
won't
touch that
hire
right
you,
now.
right? But they're
But we talk
65
about that, like there's
rating.
that meme going around about if God's will, we're talking about God's will, right? Well, God gave you a limp dick, so why do you get to have Viagra?
Right.
Like, he didn't want you to have no more babies. That's why he made it not work.
He said you had
So
enough.
So why exactly? He said, stop it, sir. But why do you get to get Viagra to make it work?
Well, it says there's 6 things he hates, he detests, 7 things, whatever. It says he hates hands that shed innocent blood, and then he says, like, stand up for those who cannot speak for themselves, who are on their way to the slaughter. So it's like, where does that come into play right there? Thou shalt not kill. Where does that come into play right there?
Oh,
I got a question.
Yeah.
Because it's
And
another
this-
life.
I know it's gonna sound awkward, and this isn't to like. I don't want to sound like an asshole because that's not what I mean. But
Okay.
I know certain people who they won't kill an animal. Do you feel the same way? Because God, when He sent the shit back with Noah, like He put one of every animal on that boat. So when He says don't slaughter, you know what I mean? One of each.
Nice. I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
that's
I
what
know
I
what
mean.
you
Yeah, you eat meat, that's
So,
bloodshed.
if you're watching the animals get slaughtered, is that the same thing? Do you feel the same way towards that, or is it just the human?
No, because God, it says in the Word that He gave us animals to eat, to survive off of.
Certain animals,
Certain
though, right?
animals.
Because
Well,
you're
yeah.
not supposed to eat
They're
like
saying the pig and
a snake,
yeah.
a pig,
But like he,
Crustaceans
anything
like
that doesn't
crawfish.
have.
Yeah.
it depends on your
Yeah.
intent. Like if you're
Crawfish.
killing an animal because you want to hurt them, it's all about your heart. Like if you're doing it to eat food, like that's what God means. But if your
I'm glad
intent,
you said that.
if your intent is to kill because you just want to kill, that's not.
So I agree with you 100,000,000,000,000%, but I also feel like that should also apply to the baby that's in your stomach. Because if you're not killing just to kill, you're killing because you really feel it deep down inside.
You can't do
Because if I was,
Or
let's just say
medical.
12 years old, a 12-year-old female who got pregnant right now in the state of New Mexico, who had no resources, I would be devastated, and I would feel like the baby would be better off without anybody, with what I know personally. CYFD, shit. The state of New Mexico, when it comes to having anything for a child, shit.
50th.
Education, shit. The overall aspect of the parents in the state of New Mexico, they haven't shown me that they're willing to come together and put their differences aside to help me raise this child.
Mm-hmm.
So I would feel like that's not her just murdering that child. that's her making an educated decision off of what she knows, her education, purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or medical reasons.
So I think she should be able to make that same decision based off of what you just said.
But we're made in God's image. Sorry, that's what the Bible says. We're made in God's image, and then so He says every child is a gift from God, a heritage from the Lord. So you're breaking God's will by taking that child away from this earth because they have a purpose in Christ. You don't know what they had it. So that's where I would.
But He still gave you the right to choose through free will.
But when He says stand up for those,
But
He doesn't contradict Himself in His
No,
word.
but He still
but
gives
the
you the
big
right to
question
choose.
is again, what if you don't believe in it?
And yeah, in God, period.
You know what I mean? What if you're not there?
Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then how is it that a ruling can come down from such a high area and dictate on their stuff?
Because that's who's empowered.
That's what the problem is, you know, like I said, the Jewish faith has abortions. The Taliban actually they will allow abortions for incest and rape.
Nuns used to have abortions. What you
Yeah,
talking about?
they're-
In the
yeah.
Catholic Church.
There are,
where Christianity came from.
again, not to to say, you know,
No, I
anything about
understand.
it, but for the people who don't believe in it, the people who, you know, read like Zinn's United States history, you know what I mean? They saw
Right.
that, you know, Christians came and they murdered and they did all of these things, and it's not something that they
That was
want to
actually
be
the
a part of.
Catholics.
And they,
Well, but Christianity came out of that. So,
but either way, if
Crusades.
I decided that I'm not comfortable with the King James Bible, regardless of whether Catholics or Christians teach it, I'm not comfortable with the King James Bible.
Mhm.
Why do you get to tell me, not you, but why does the
Yeah.
religion get to tell me I don't have rights to this when my religion says that I do?
Because that's who's in power. The old white
So,
dudes
like-
picking that, making the laws.
So the Bible says that so there's righteous judgment in the Bible. So Christians can judge other Christians who are sinning in the church. And when I say church, I mean the body of Christ. So like if we have, it's just people who are Christians. So if someone's sinning, I can righteously judge them,
Mhm.
which means that I have to judge them not by my flesh, not by my opinion, but by the word of God, because the Bible says that the word of God, the Bible, it is God. He's alive in the word and is the word. So it's actually God judging that Christian, but it's righteous judgment with love,
Mhm.
because you don't want that person to perish because they're going against God's commands, right?
Mhm.
We can't judge the world, but when it comes to, He says, stand up for those who cannot speak for themselves who are going to the slaughter, right? That's where I think God draws the line, because you're taking the will of another person away.
Yeah, but they did
So-
it for slavery. I mean, like a lot of black people went to the slaughter then, and they used the Bible to justify slavery.
But that doesn't mean it's okay. Just like Lot and his daughters, he didn't have no sons, right? And they wanted to continue their bloodline, so they slept with they got their dad drunk and slept with him. That doesn't mean that was God's will. He's just showing in the Bible the sin that happened, so that we can know how much the people needed Jesus, and why Jesus had to die for us, because none of us are good.
Yeah, I guess my viewpoint on it would be no one should be able to judge anyone. Like, because he also said, let he without sin cast the first stone.
But then he
Lady
said, go and sin no
Magdalene.
more after that.
But nobody
Do
on
we
earth
do that?
But yeah.
is sinning.
Is it-
Everybody's
is it
Yeah,
really
we
question?
don't
That's why
talk
Jesus
about,
died, though.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not an excuse to
But a
justify
period-
your sin or to
right,
take
but
his,
being in a
him dying in
period of
vain.
grace is different.
That's hyper grace, though.
Yeah, but without that grace, like it still doesn't change his intention or her intention, whatever you
Or
believe,
they.
or they or them, right?
Or who God is, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so that doesn't change the fact that he gave us free will, like period. Whatever.
But you're taking away the will of another person.
No,
But
you're-
if that
that's
person-
exactly
the
what
baby-
they just
the
did.
baby.
But if
When
that
you kill
person
it.
doesn't believe in it, then what happens?
No, so I'll fight for the unborn, even if you don't believe it or not, because,
Well,
But isn't
and
that
Christianity
No,
is
but
not-
hold on,
Isn't
hold on.
that- isn't that-
Let's
isn't
let her
that
say it.
forcing
Yeah.
religion though? And that's what America was found on, is to be able to vocalize one, free speech against a tyrannical government and religious freedom. If I come to this country and I live here and it was founded on that law, aren't Christians wrong?
I'm not forcing my rights on you by fighting for another life.
You are, by saying my God says that abortion is sin and you can't do that anymore.
Well, I'm saying because you guys asked. I've been pro-life since before I was a Christian. I gave my life to Christ when I was 26.
Mhm. Yeah,
Before that,
yeah.
And we already know from the
Yeah.
statistics, being a Christian doesn't say you aren't getting abortions, because we saw
But-
1 in 4 or 1 in 3 identified as being a Christian. So even religion isn't deterring people from having abortions.
Yeah, but it's still, if you don't believe in it, you're
there's
pushing.
false doctrine everywhere. That's why.
Yeah, but it's
Abortion
by
is just
saying my God says you can't do this, and then putting a law in place when my religion says that I can. You're superseding my religion and my religious freedoms.
And that's why y'all should vote. You have to find out all of the voting that's going to be happening in November.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to know where they stand on these issues and vote for that, because that's the only thing that's going to change. People who are in power, who have those beliefs, are the ones who can impose those on everybody else, because they're the ones in power. So the only way that we can, if you don't agree, then we need to get them out of office.
Abort the court.
There we go.
So I guess my question would be, are not the Supreme Court all appointed? Like, we don't get to vote
They're appointed.
our
They're
Supreme
appointed.
Court. So at the end of the day, we have no say really in who is sitting on
Yeah,
that.
but you have a say in the president who does that. The congressional people, or the Congress that
Well, the
confirms them
previous president did put those 3 in office. He appointed them
on
personally.
purpose.
For this
Yes,
reason.
and they blocked Obama from being able to do it because he was going to put someone in the office that is pro-choice.
So I guess that would lead to this question. What do y'all think we can do as far as whatever our choice is on the subject? How can we improve what's going on in the favor of whatever our choice is?
Keeping church out of government. There's a separation of church for a reason. We need to have "In God We Trust" removed off of our money. We need to have it removed off of all of our monuments. It is not a free country, and I am not able to practice my religious rights with that being held over it. That is what America was found on. It is part of what is guaranteed here. And the fact that one group can dictate in such a manner the wills of others is not what this country is about. And that is not what my taxpayer dollars go to.
I believe that my taxpayer dollars should not go to killing the innocent lives of babies, because it's not what I stand for. I think we should have our taxes taken out of that, and they want to have their funds and do that, and that's them. But like, I shouldn't have my tax dollars going towards that. And like, if I'm, I don't force my religion on people. That's not what I do. There's a lot of false doctrine out there, and people that call themselves Christians who are not Christians, and stuff they listen to is not even in the Bible, and they don't obey the Bible, but they say it's the Bible, and then it pollutes people's minds on what Christianity truly is. And I just believe in standing up for someone who cannot speak for itself, because I believe babies should have rights too. I believe men should have rights to those babies too, because it's half their DNA. And like, I know a lot of men aren't standing up, but there are men that actually want their babies, and then, they don't have a say so and their baby dies, But I do believe that, yeah, we should vote. Voting is important because it does vote in what you believe, and that's how things change here, unfortunately. It's not really the people. I mean, with the vaccines, some people didn't want to get vaccinated and they lost their jobs. They were heroes the year before, and then now they're not heroes, and they get their jobs taken from them. So it really does come down to voting.
And ending gerrymandering.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you are someone who is pro-choice, there's a lot of organizations you can donate to. You can, because quite frankly, the people coming from Texas, it's not your tax dollars paying for those abortions. They are private funds that raise, nonprofits that raise funding for this to be able to pay for them to have that care. So it's not always our tax dollars on Medicaid for them. I think that so if you want to get involved, find some organizations. There's several organizations that are doing great work with funds like this right here in New Mexico for that. And again, it is about voting. It is absolutely about voting, writing your Congress people now, telling them your stance, and you are their constituents. So I think that there can be power in the people getting together. I mean, the organizers of the big rally that happened at Teague Park on Friday, was amazing, right? Just to see people out there standing together against our rights being infringed, because I agree with what you said. This is only the beginning. You need to be informed. Supreme Court just ruled on a whole bunch of other things that have a big effect on our rights, like our right to bear arms, right? And go look all those things up, because you have to be educated about what's happening. I'm not an expert. There are people who are in our community that do a lot more work around this than I do, and I'm learning. But the information's at your fingertips. There's no reason to be naive anymore. You can look up things from reputable sources and find out what's happening and get involved. And that's on either side.
Yeah.
And it's all about knowing who your elected officials are and where they stand on these issues and finding out and holding them accountable to that.
Right.
So as you all can see, we'll probably have a part 2 next week, same place, same time. And remember, if you see something, say something, but make sure you do something.
That was good. I
It
like
was.
that it was a healthy debate.
It doesn't have to be contentious. That's
No,
the other
no.
thing. We should be able to